So man, I was just listening to the Felix version of the solo to Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. And this has gotta be, in my view, probably the best guitar solo ever played, alright? And very fascinating. So Felix is the guitar player from Bon Jovi, and but he's done a lot of guitar playing with a lot of bands. Like he's played a lot with Daughtry, the rock band. He's also played with a lot of pop acts, and Bon Jovi is obviously just one of them. But the great guitar player Rick Beato actually just did a video collab where he got Felix and Eric Johnson and himself, Rick Beato, to create alternative versions of the famous solo from Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. And so, for me, this was a very interesting kind of project collab to look at because, first of all, I'm a big fan of Eric Johnson. In my view, one of the top 10 guitarists of all time, one of the most talented guitar players ever. You know, just in my view, he's just incredible. But I'm also a big fan of Felix. In my view, another one of the top 10 all-time guitar players, like younger than Eric Johnson. Um, in my view, Eric Johnson is a more influential player. Has probably reached a lot more guitar players. Like if you start looking at people that cite Eric Johnson as as an influencer in their playing, you start seeing legends. You start seeing like some of the greatest guitarists of all time tell you that, hey, Eric Johnson is one of the guys that I listen to or used to. So I have enormous respect. But also Felix, like I said, in my view, Felix is definitely a top 10 uh, greatest guitar player all time. He's definitely in the top 10 along with Eric Johnson and a whole bunch of legends. But just this solo to Stairway to Heaven was an interesting collab just because, you know, with Rick Beato there. Rick Beato actually played an amazing solo, um, Pete Frampton style that he did, and I really liked it. I really liked it. It was really good. It was really upbeat. Um, but when you get into the Felix version, whoa, man, that was like lightning. Because what I liked about that solo, now that solo actually has five, in my view, when I looked at it, I think it has like five different kind of like speed levels. Think of them like gears on a Ferrari racing car or on a Formula One, the fastest kinds of Formula One cars out there on the racetrack. And this one is actually got five different gears, and that's kind of crazy how Felix kind of did that, because he kind of starts off kind of slow, just noodling around like some little stuff with a lot of heavy vibrato and things like that, which just kind of stamps like, okay, it kind of announces it like, okay, this is the start of something huge, right? And I really like that because that's actually a hallmark from one of my favorite guitar players of all time, who is George Lynch. Now, Felix was doing this kind of like in Eddie Van Halen style, and I guess Eddie Van Halen used to do that as well. But that's kind of what I like when George Lynch does that. Like you can tell, like, okay, something is coming. Like it catches your attention, and if you are musical at all, it's kind of hard for you to ignore it. uh, and that's what the great public speakers do, whether in um, sports announcements, whether in announcing something on TV, right? Um, or or in this case in music, because music is a form of public communication. So a great guitar player is gonna be able, like the solo is not just gonna start rolling and then after like 15 seconds you realize, oh, it's a solo. Like with a really great guitar player, like what Felix just does at the start of that solo, they do something that makes you chill your head, like, what just hit me, what's coming down, like, like, so that's what he does. And that's speed one. It's really slow, by the way. That's like probably the slowest, um kind of the slowest rhythm that he's gonna play in that entire solo is that beginning. But he's emphasizing the notes with heavy vibrato, and almost like he's using the whammy bar. I forget if he actually uses it, but or whether he's using some kind of effects pedal, but it's enough to catch your ear, like, okay, something heavy is coming down. And sure enough, it doesn't disappoint. It actually leads into, in my view, probably the best solo ever played. Like the best solo that's been played. Contextually to a song, that's gotta be that Felix solo, to Stairway to Heaven. And then he goes into the kind of the first real measure of that, and now he plays that with like tempo number two, and so it's like he shifts into the second gear. That was the first one. Now you're in the second one, and it gives hints of explosive things to come that he's gonna do. And then he shifts it into gear number three, and you're kind of like, wow, this is really rocking. And what's neat about this guy is that this is a guy who is an ultimate guitar shredder, and he takes the Led Zeppelin solo and turns it into something completely different, influenced by Eddie Van Halen, but now with like 5 shred speeds. And that's what's great about it. Like, the people in the studio would probably not ever allow anybody to probably not ever allowed Led Zeppelin to do this, because he takes it into extreme shred. Like, by the time he gets into gear 4, he's like all out shredding, and it's kind of crazy. It's explosive. It's like fireworks, Eddie Van Halen style. And by the time you get to the end of the solo, he's kind of just playing so fast. It's pure shred, in a way that a lot of kind of people that like to sit on the fence would say, like, oh man, that's just shred, like that's just shred, it's not musical, man, that's just shred. But as people that like shred, that like Michelangelo Batio and Ingwie Malmsteen and George Lynch and guys like that, we're like, yeah, that's a real win for shred, man, like that's the real shred. um and so it's just so interesting, man. It's like the best solo that I've ever seen played, and obviously it's a lot better than my own version of the solo. Like the chord progression on the solo is actually pretty simple. It goes something like this. So it's something like that, an intermediate guitar player like myself might play something like this. Something like that, But with someone like Felix, a complete shredder, I mean, he takes it all the way to gear number 5, and I really love the effects. In my view, that had to be the best solo that we've ever seen. Now, I'll say something about the Eric Johnson version of the solo as well, because when I was listening to it again and again, man, the Eric Johnson solo just sounds otherworldly. And that's what I love about Eric Johnson, man. Like, his solos, they're such careful selection of notes, note placement, and it just is deep, man. It just is deep and profound. And so it's kind of like the opposite vibe almost from the Felix solo, which is powerful, moving, fast-paced. But the Eric Johnson solo is kind of like spacey, and it kind of puts you like almost in a time dilation loop where it's kind of like dreamy and you start kind of just drifting off. And it's just really beautiful, and it reminds me of a lot of Eric Johnson solo playing and a lot of his guitar work on his albums that just is otherworldly and surreal and just breathtaking, man. Just amazing. Now it's not as shred fast as the Felix solo, and when you listen to the original Stairway to Heaven solo, what made it really so powerful in many ways was just how the emphasis in that solo, when you listen to the original studio recording, was just on the pace and the speed. It's not the longest solo. It's not as long as a David Gilmour solo, right? Like it's there for just a moment in time and then it's gone, but it packs a powerful punch because it's so fast paced, and then it explodes. Like it makes a statement and it explodes. So that's where its power is. So that's where I feel like the Felix solo builds on that and actually goes better than that. And so that's why I had to pick the Felix version rather than the Eric Johnson version. I'm not saying the Eric Johnson version is lacking in anything. It's great. Like it's a fantastic solo, and it probably is one of the best solos ever played as well. It's just that for this song, with what was done in the studio, I feel like Felix managed to do the impossible, which is to create a solo that's actually better for that song, which was an amazing solo, the Jimmy Page solo. But I feel like Felix managed to outdo Jimmy Page and just kind of craft something that blows that out of the water and created, the best guitar solo ever played. So what do you think? Maybe you think I'm completely wrong. Maybe you think Felix doesn't know how to play guitar. Maybe you think like Eric Johnson doesn't know how to play guitar, and that Rick Beato shouldn't have gotten these legends along with himself together in the first place to do this amazing collab. So drop your comments below, but chances are, if you don't think these guys were great, probably I won't be convinced. Catch you next time.